reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network.
You're logging into your favorite game, grinding out some gear. A couple of points added to your stats, and you have a virtual beer. Max level is pretty cool, but I'll remind you here, my friend. These games are not about the goal, it's about the journey and not the end.
You're listening to MMO Reporter, brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/MMO Reporter. And by Doghouse Systems. Choose your weapon with Doghouse Systems.
Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your ults you need to
Hello
cherish.
everyone, and welcome to another MMO Reporter. This is episode 270. I'm Chris, and I'm joined once again by the ever so handsome Mr. Harry Hall. Hello, Harry.
Hey there, nice to be here once again.
And the ever so magnanimous, ever so belligerent after last week's show, gotta say, Mr. at MMO Bill. Hello, Bill.
Oh, I was hoping for handsome.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
Keep
but
on hoping.
you have to put up with my shit like you did last week.
And that's the first S-bomb of the show.
Well,
Yeah,
hey, this is all in
it's-
response to Bill's attitude problem last week. That's all I gotta say.
You deny that you deserved every word. I dare you.
Not even for a second.
Okay.
Good.
I'm glad we're square.
good. Yeah. Okay, so we've actually got quite a bit to talk about, as well as a little bit of a pre-recorded segment talking about MXM, the new NCSoft game, some Rift stuff. You know what, guys? For the first half of the show, this is going to be, for the first segment post what we've done in game, this is going to be a very business heavy chunk of podcast, but I think it's really interesting. So we'll have to take a look at that in a minute.
Considering we've got game releases and everything actually happening, it's kind of interesting that it is businessy.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are.
Here we are. All right, Bill, why don't you start talking a little bit about what you have done in game?
Well, speaking of business, my business has basically been Blizzard Bill this week.
Your business has basically been Blizzard Bill. Wow.
Right, huh?
Did
You like that, eh?
Wow, that was amazing.
My microphone is soaked right now.
I bet.
I've been playing Overwatch. I've actually toned down my Overwatch play a fair bit, but I'm trying to stay well tuned because season 2 is starting to come up, and I want to see if I can improve on my rating. Yeah. Anyway, it looks like it's going to be an interesting year in Overwatch, but I'm not going to dwell on that because
what dragged you away from that?
It's MMO adjacent. Basically, it's been World of Warcraft that dragged me away from it. I've got right into Legion. I've started to do some power leveling, try to get up to 110. I've got my rogue just screaming along. I've got my artifact weapons. I've been questing against Stormheim. It's essential World of Warcraft to me. It feels like that old addiction, sort of just clawing back under my skin and getting into my veins and everything like that. It's not terrible.
Like a demonic infection, you might say.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, this is the end game for Blizzard all along. No, it is. It has that feel, that gut feeling you get when you actually have the nostalgia for when you were back in the game many, many years ago and going through new zones and kind of experiencing new stuff in Warcraft for the first time. I'm kind of feeling that vibe again. It's different, but still the same.
I bet
And
you if we
I
went to
realize
the
I'm-
last expansion podcast, there would be very similar words coming out of your mouth. You felt the same way about WoD, didn't you? About Warlords of Draenor?
Probably Draenor and probably Cataclysm and certainly Wrath of the Lich King. This is not new for me. I'm not trying to say that I'm building on personal discoveries here or anything like that. But basically, it's done it again. Like this is If there's one, there's a lot of consistency in WoW. WoW really is. We've said it before. It's the McDonald's of MMOs. You always know what you're going to get.
But just serious question. If the only reason you are feeling joy is because it is making you remember a time when you felt joy, then it's not actually a fun game. It's just reminding you of the time it was fun for you.
Well,
or am I missing something?
I think you're probably missing something because, I mean, I don't think it could evoke that kind of joy and fun unless it was fun in the first place. Unless the fun I was experiencing in the first place was actually fake fun and I didn't realize it, and I still don't realize it, and I'm not going to realize it until I have my own epiphanial experience to...
you had fun wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get this very clear. They have not changed the fundamental gameplay mechanics of WoW. You are still playing a theme park MMO where you go from quest hub to quest hub completing objectives. They've changed some of the window dressing around that. They've changed some of the ways in which you do that, but at its fundamental core, this is still the same WoW that was there at vanilla. Leveling is faster, and there's some different mechanics in there to help you get through these leveling instances. I think one of the things we were talking about in the pre-show, Bill, when we were streaming, was about the phasing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what that's going to let us do, sort of our plan that we talked about in the pre-show?
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, it used to be that WoW was the template that everyone else applied to their game, and now WoW is really kind of stealing from other game, or not stealing, but it's incorporating a lot. I feel like it's incorporating a lot more. Okay, stealing. Anyway, what they've done with this expansion is they've added several new zones. I think it's 5 new zones, but 4 of them are all scaled. So when I say scaled, I mean that if you play them in any order you want. So when you get through kind of the initial cinematic questing experience that you go through, you're ported back to the city of Dalaran, which is going to be familiar for anyone from Wrath of the Lich King. And that's kind of your central hub. And from there, you can actually choose whichever zone you go to. And it doesn't matter which zone you go to, because your leveling is going to be the same. The mobs are all going to be scaled to you rather than having them just be these static mobs that, okay, zone X, that's a 104 level zone. And you're going to, when those mobs turn green, then you go to zone Y, which is a 106 level zone, and so forth. It's completely scaled to your character. And so as a result, as you go through, you're going to see other characters coming through. You might see some characters 10 levels higher than you, fighting the same mobs as you and doing roughly the same damage. So it's good. It kind of gives you a bit of illusion of choice. It makes it a little bit easier to group up with other people. It makes the world seem a little bit more full, and it also makes sure that zones don't get stale quite so quickly, because that was something that I remember even going back all the way to Burning Crusade, was that the starter zones were just dull as dishwater all the way through. And when you got to the kind of the max level zones, those became interesting and they had character, and there was a little, you could tell there was extra detail added to them, probably out of necessity because people were going to be spending more time there. Now there's it feels like there's the same level of polish as you move from one zone to the other and have a look. I haven't been through all the zones yet, but I've popped my nose into 2 of them now, and they all have a lot of life and a lot of character to them. So,
and I think the other thing to keep in mind as well is that these are also zones which you go back to once you unlock world quests, once you hit max level. So you're going back into those zones. Basically, your dailies are no longer in specific areas. They're out in the rest of the world. And so you're running out, and once you hit level 110, you unlock the world quests, and you go back into these zones, which are now scaled to 110, including there's also a middle zone which is only for 110 only. So that they had to make all of the zones fantastic, because you would be back to them so often, right? How many times do you go back to Hellfire Peninsula when you were in Burning Legion, right? Once you were done
Only when I absolutely have to, and I try to hold my breath as I go through it.
I was going to say, it would have been nice if those zones were fun the first time you went through.
They were. and they were okay. Like they were
yeah.
they were C plus zones. And then when you got to the end of the expansion, that's when you got the Bs and the As. And that was a very clear pattern, I thought, as you went through, even through Wrath of the Lich King and even through Cataclysm, I would say. It was a very clear graduation where you had zones that, oh, these people, you're going to just be leveling through those. You might spend a couple hours and then you're done. Oh, this is a zone that you're going to be spending your end game time in. So you're going to be here a lot. This one's the one that we're putting the polish on.
Yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about as well with as far as this expansion goes is the way in which they've done the story, which when you were playing Warlords of Draenor, I loved that story. Absolute, that was something, to me, it was almost single-player RPG quality level of story and quests that were part of the main story. I really, really enjoyed that. And I'm finding that the way that they've done the story here, which is more in, there's still an overarching story, but the stories are much more based on the zone that you're going into. And it's very strongly based with less, a more loose tie to the greater narrative. And I like it, but I don't think I like that as much as I liked the Warlords of Draenor method. It was much more cinematic in Warlords of Draenor.
Yeah, so far I'm not missing Warlords of Draenor for that. I didn't mind the way that Warlords of Draenor did their story, but I'm certainly enjoying the way it's happening in Legion 2.
Right, and so we're still pretty early in the expansion. I think you're still 101. Are you 102 yet? Bill?
Almost 103, yeah.
Oh, almost 103. Okay, and I'm 104, and I'm like 75% through to 105. So, you know, we're still just basically halfway through this expansion. So we've got a lot more content to go through, and a lot more of a game to play before we can make our sort of final impressions on the expansion. Right now, though, I'm having a hell of a lot of fun. Like a hell of a lot of fun. This is what I want to be doing when I'm playing other things because I have to for a story or for, you know, for some coverage or something like that. I want to be playing this all the time right now. That's it. And I think that's what it comes down to. It's fun.
If I had to do a one sentence review of Legion, I would basically say that Blizzard has failed to ruin World of Warcraft yet again.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what the end game is like to see whether or not it's a great experience. I've been hearing great things about it from streamers and from other players, but I want to see it for myself before we get too far. I think I'm going to make a push for this weekend to try and hit 110. What about you, Harry? Are you playing Legion yet? You haven't been very talkative here as Bill and I have been talking about it.
I am about to get into it. I am reviewing it, but I really didn't want to get in on day one. So I'm saving it for the weekend. I'm starting to play today. We're recording on a Friday, at least on my time zone for people who don't know that. So it's going to take a big chunk of my time this weekend and the coming days. And I'm not exactly looking forward to it. I'm actually... The scary thing is when I realized I was going to play it again, I thought, what can I put on my iPad to watch while I'm playing it?
Okay.
And lucky for me, and this is something I'm very happy about, Dutch Netflix just added Star Trek: The Original Series.
Oh, cool.
So that'll take me to max level.
Okay, so here's the thing. Just today when I was playing, because I had a chunk of time to play in the afternoon, and then I played in the pre-show as well, I, for the first time in a while playing WoW, turned off watching any streams and turned off any videos and just played through the game and focused on the game.
Madness.
I know. And I didn't feel like I needed something to distract me from the boredom of the game. And I don't know if it's just because right now I'm excited about it, so I'm really into it, because that could totally be it. Or maybe they've just designed it in a way that requires a little bit more attention, and I'm okay giving that. The story chunks are much more frequent, and so I want to be listening to what they're saying more often. I still basically don't read quest text, but when somebody's talking, I tend to listen.
The one thing that I'm planning to do is you have this boost again, right, to get to
Yeah.
start of the zone, and I have a hunter lying around somewhere at level, I think 65 or something.
Yeah.
And and that was my original character, the one that I started playing with. And I'm thinking of just using the boost on that character for several reasons, not only for nostalgia's sake, but also I will have to relearn the hunter. And I think that will keep my attention a little bit more if I'm actually invested in that, rather than just picking up my mage, who is actually kind of boring.
Yeah.
They're both DPS, but the mage is just blast, 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 blast. It's just not my... It's not really my idea of tactical play.
You could make it really challenging and go Survival Hunter, which is in this expansion is a melee spec, as it was originally in Alpha. Has not been a melee spec since Alpha. It was
the only thing I'm actually worried about is that I probably need more backspace to buy all those arrows again to log around so that's going to be difficult.
You don't have to do that anymore, do you, Bill?
You're kidding. Of course you have to. A hunter needs their arrows, otherwise they can't hunt. Everybody knows that.
Okay.
You're not going to tell me to change things like that, because that will make the game more fun.
It's the goblins, though. They invented the limitless arrow. It actually returns back to you. You only need two. You need one for that's stuck in your target, and one that you're just about to shoot.
You just need a mohawk and a whistle, and you're good.
Yeah, they trade places. It's magic.
Yeah,
it's like playing a mage, really.
I think I think I've talked enough about a game I haven't yet played.
Yes.
I did play a little bit of Deus Ex Mankind Divided. That's the sequel to Deus Ex. And I haven't gotten that far into it. I'm actually still doing the tutorial. And I kind of suck at the game because they changed the control scheme since the last version. So I'm getting used to stuff.
Oh, that sucks.
It's not that. I mean, it's just. And also, I'm playing it on PC. While first I played it on the console, and I noticed that I'm actually more comfortable with the controller, even behind the PC. That's weird because you'd think mouse keyboard would be excellent for this, but not for me. So this is probably my problem. The thing I do love about it is you get this this launcher window where you can do your settings, and I set everything to ultra. And then the game pops up and says, "Are you sure you need more than 4 gigabytes of video RAM for this?" I got 8 gigabytes of video RAM on my computer because I got an NVIDIA 390. An AMD 390. And it is running smooth as silk on the most optimum, perfect, high ultra settings possible. And that's good to see.
That just must feel good. It's great when they say, "Are you sure this is going to really push your computer?" And you say, "Oh yes, I'm sure."
Yeah, bring it on. So exactly, that was just exactly the feeling. Like, do it, baby. And but it is. I enjoy the game as far as I've played it. It has this kind of standard start of having more powers than you're probably going to have in the rest of the game. Just gives you a feel of the different options, how the stealth works, the combat works, and it's fun and very, very pretty. It looks amazing. One thing I'm wondering is why can't computer animators get lip syncing right? It's always a little off. I don't know. It's very high in the uncanny valley. Yeah.
I wonder if they purposely muddy it a little bit so that it works better with different languages.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't look like it. Looks like they're making an effort. Anyway, it's good, and I'm looking forward to playing it again. I like Cyberpunk, and it's I love the first one. The only problem I had with not the first one. I mean the previous one, the first of the reboot series. The problem I had with that is I enjoyed the fact that I could tweak my character any way I wanted, and I did, and I focused a lot of the non-violent skills. And then you got to the boss battles, and it turned out that the game wasn't designed for people who, like me, wanted to be more attacky kind of Jensen. And I'm very curious if they've solved that. They did say something about that in the remaster or the director's edition that they released later on. So what I will try to find out is if I can actually play the way I want to, or if the game is still funneling me to combat some way. I've played and I've played this. I've talked about this before. Project Cars is a racing game that has full Oculus Rift compatibility, and I remembered that I have one of those very old, very weird wireless 360 steering wheels lying around. And wireless in the way that only Microsoft can say it's wireless, because there's wires from the pedals to the steering wheel, and from the steering wheel to the power outlet. So it's not exactly wireless, but they actually called it the wireless steering wheel.
This is the same one you talked about a couple weeks ago, right? The steering wheel?
The steering wheel. But I didn't talk about the steering wheel, I think.
Yes, you did.
Did I?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
But you've been playing more Project Cars, I take it.
I did, yeah. Because it's amazing with the steering wheel.
And VR.
And well, the thing is, I have this IKEA lounge chair that you're sitting really low in, and just exactly the right height for a car. And if you sit in that chair with the steering wheel and your Rift on your head, you're in a sports car. And it is just the most amazing experience you can have with an Oculus Rift.
That's awesome.
It's just fantastic.
That's fantastic. That's so good to hear, because I want experiences like that for VR.
It's kind of like it's the most conservative setup that you can have, just like Elite Dangerous, like flight stick, cockpit game, Oculus Rift. I mean, it can't get more basic than that. It's just it, and because it is not actually pushing VR in kinds of weird directions, because it's very intuitive to have a cockpit and the steering wheel and looking around as you do. The illusion is near flawless, and
right.
This just blows my mind. Looking forward to a couple of new games, because they're actually ramping up for touch, and touch is the touch controller. It's the what brings motion. It brings your hands into VR, and they said they're going to be at least 30 games at launch for that one,
nice.
And I'm looking forward to that. So that's going to be a very interesting time of the year for me.
Quick aside, did you hear about the new 4K headset that has been that was coming out? I just heard, I can't remember it now, but there was a story where they were going to try to link it up with IMAX, so you went in, watched an IMAX movie, came out, and had this 4K VR experience afterwards. It's only like $8,000 or so for the headset.
I know there are several companies working on that stuff, and while it is interesting that they're doing that, obviously the price is completely ridiculous for consumer model. Mm-hmm. The other problem is there is no 4K content yet, because if you're looking at VR video, for example, if you have those 360 videos, you have those in 3D, and you can look around, and if you would have that video, as some have, on a 4K resolution, it looks like crap on VR, because you need more. Right. Because you have to look around. If 4K of pixels is filling the entire dome that you're about to look through, that means that what you're actually seeing is a portion of the screen of the image, and that will be a much lower resolution than 4K. So you need actually 8 to 16K to get the illusion of an HD display.
Wow, that's crazy.
So even if that doesn't mean that, if you have a 4K headset, that means 4K per eye. That will also mean you can take advantage of that more. But there is no content yet that is taking advantage of anything like that, except for probably Discovery Channel doing an IMAX video, especially for that with some high-priced equipment. But so there's no point at all. I would be hard pushed to say there's a point to having an Oculus Rift at this time if you're not completely enthusiastic about it.
Yeah. Now, are there any games that you wish were in VR right now? Maybe some other space games that you've been playing or anything like that?
Well, yeah, there is this one game that I'm looking forward to playing in VR, and it's absolutely not No Man's Sky. No, the thing is, the interesting thing, when I got No Man's Sky, I've got the box next to me. I got the box. Ooh. So when I'm looking at, yeah, I know, right? When I put that in, I just came out of a long desperately dangerous trek. I actually did some exploration, so I spent a couple of days in VR, flying to the stars and exploring planets, and just doing that. And coming from that and putting the disc into my PlayStation 4 and sitting in my regular chair looking at a flat screen, I thought, this is not going to work for me. And I was pleasantly surprised that that wasn't the issue. I have no problem, it turns out, to turn back to the old-fashioned way of gaming. I mean, it's just fine. What I did find is that No Man's Sky, while having very interesting ideas and amazing technological, well, the theory behind the tech is very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
The actual implementation of it, to me, lacks substance. It is not, I wouldn't say it is a empty game, but for me it is a boring game that doesn't really pay off the feeling of exploration. The thing is, the moment I go to a planet and I land and I see some creature hopping around, there is never a sense that that I look at the creature and think, wow, what an amazing discovery. It's just one of those things you scan to get your roster filled, if you're even into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I hop to the next planet. I see other creatures that are procedurally generated. I can actually see, after a couple of jumps, you can even see the parts getting reused.
Mm-hmm.
And it never feels like it is special. There is never, for me, a sense of wonder. And after 2 hours of play, I didn't feel like it really mattered if I was on one planet or the other, aside from one planet having a certain resource that the other hasn't. So it didn't feel to me like it mattered that I traveled. There are a couple of things that I really did enjoy. I mean, there is this game on iPad and iPhone called Out There, which is it's very similar to Faster Than Light, in that you jump to sector and try to reach a certain point. It plays almost identical to Faster Than Light, but it adds a very weird and wonderful story about exploration in a unknown galaxy. And that atmosphere and the music is also something that I find in No Man's Sky, and it's very well done. And the fact that there is this mystery and this atlas or this other path that you can take, that keeps me interested for a while. And on top of that, and this is a clever thing, the language system is something I really enjoy. The fact that by exploring and finding monuments and finding computers lying around you, you learn words in alien languages that help you communicate with different factions. It's also very interesting and intriguing to me because it deals with something that science fiction usually glosses over, namely the language barrier. So that's an interesting take on it. But it isn't enough for me to actually feel that I'm on a journey, which should be the main reason for this game's existence.
And I think one of the things, yes, the journey is important, but also the destination, especially in gaming, has to be something that is worthwhile. You want to get through this journey and have a destination, an endpoint that is worthwhile, fun, feels like an accomplishment. And for me, at least, I haven't finished the Atlas Path. I went down the Atlas Path for a while. I've done a little bit of research about it. I'll talk about that in a second. I have done the Galactic Path and gone to the Galactic Core and seen what's happened there. And that's what prompted the comment last week. Because all that happens when you reach the Galactic Core, and if you remember, it was teased, oh, we don't want to say what happens because it's mysterious and special. Do you remember hearing that in interviews and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, it's mysterious, it's special, it's something we want players to discover for themselves. You just start in another fucking galaxy.
They also said they actually joked, like, this is going to be something really special. You don't want players to reach the Galactic Core and then just start over again. That would be cruel. That's a literal quote from one of the designers.
And that's what happens. Your ship is broken, your stuff is cracked, and you have to fix it all again. But that's it. You just restart all over again in another galaxy. And I went and I looked and I found a YouTuber who's gone through this 13 times by the time he made this video, had gone through 13 galaxies, and that's all that it was. It was just another galaxy, and even another person had cycled back through to their original galaxy. So, yeah,
that's
the biggest
trolling.
disappointment to me. That's the biggest thing, because if they had promised this big mysterious secret thing, and for I was talking about the Atlas Path, apparently it's basically the same thing too. There's no big surprise at the end of the Atlas Path. It's just, hey, look at that. You did this. You did a thing. Good job. Pat on the back. On your way. If you can't tell, I'm a little peeved at that.
Bill, you were saying?
I was just saying that it honestly sounds a little bit like trolling. Like, it almost sounds like somebody decided that, yeah, let's just say this to screw with them a bit. Yeah, I mean, and that's been really the being the guy that hasn't played No Man's Sky, but it's only kind of read the reviews and the controversy and that kind of thing. In many ways, it really feels like somebody said that, oh, just say anything. Just build the hype. Doesn't even matter what you say. Just whatever you do, get the hype. That's what we're going to sell.
Peter Molyneux, is that you?
No.
Yeah. I was
Actually,
just...
there's been an amazing number of comparisons to Peter Molyneux that I've seen.
Well, the thing that I am kind of pissed about, not to the level that Chris was, because I was bored more than angry, is that there are a couple of things there that I really like. For example, in many ways, the game plays and feels like the original Elite did back in the 80s. The way you go into the space stations, the way the trading and everything works, it's very, very, very similar to the old school original Elite. It also has some things that are directly taken from another game from that era, and you probably don't remember that game. It's called Mercenary. It was available on the Commodore 64 and the Commodore Plus 4 computers, which was a vector graphics game just like Elite, where you crash landed on a planet and actually had to traverse that planet and go into buildings and interact with different aliens from different factions and just basically find your own way to get off the planet. But you were involved in a civil war. Very abstract, but because we didn't have anything more than abstract back in the day. But all those systems seem to be there in No Man's Sky as well. So those were things that I was looking forward to experiencing. But it's almost like they never got round to fleshing it out to be an actual game. If you're going to be deconstructive about it, and I'm going to, what you do is you go to planets to shoot at stuff to get resources to get to the next planet, and that's the loop. And there isn't much more than that. Everything else seems to be there just to hide that there's nothing more. And there is no big, deep interaction with factions. There are no sides to take that have meaning. There is no sense that you are part of this universe. There is no feeling of ownership of your discoveries. And all those things matter. Because if that's not there, then the game is empty and nothing more than a screensaver or a tech demo.
Yeah. First, I want to agree with you totally. Second, did you ever play Starflight? That's what this reminds me of. 80s game exploration, very similar to that. Same time as Elite. I've got a question.
I don't know that.
I've got a question. If this had launched like Elite did, saying, okay, there's a game here, go in here, here's what we're going to work on in the future. This is what we're working on. And they'd launched it like Elite in that sort of way. Do you think you or I or the community would be as disappointed with it? Because that's what it feels like. It feels like, not exactly like, but comparatively like Elite at launch. There's a whole bunch of features that Elite has now, that Star Citizen even has now, that frickin' Wing Commander had. But anyways, it should have, it doesn't have, but I could totally see them adding it to the game. And this could be a good game in a year, in 2 years, but I don't know if it's going to survive.
Well, the odd thing is my first response when I was playing it for after the first 1 or 2 hours was, if I had played this game 20 years ago in this current state, it would have been the best freaking game I've ever played. Mm-hmm. Because technology was not that advanced and everything there kind of gave me a sense of wonder, and there was no internet. Well, hardly any internet, and especially not a big gaming culture movement on the internet to tell me about everything that's happening there. So I would have retained a sense of mystery. I think knowing everything and all the promises they made, and then being savvy enough to see what they did and what they didn't do, and then hearing on the internet, seeing the GIFs fly on every page about the penis monsters. There are several pages dedicated to penis monsters in No Man's Sky, and that kind of there is. So I think part of the problem is that the internet kind of sucked the wonder out of it. I think it's also, if this would have been a $15 or $20 surprise PlayStation Plus game, this would have been the indie sleeper hit of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think much of the problem has to do with expectation, but not all of it, because I didn't have many expectations. Because when I heard about this game, I thought, this is not going to be what people think it's going to be. This isn't going to be a competition to Elite Dangerous or Star Citizen. This is going to be its own game. And turns out it is Fast and Light meets Journey. That's the game. And so I think many people thought this was going to be an Elite Dangerous killer, for lack of a better term, and it's not. So I don't think it has to do with launching it in early access and then building from that, because I don't think this game is ever going to be the game that you or I would want it to be.
Okay. I think after hearing you say that, I'm a little more sad on the inside, and I want to just curl up into the fetal position, because I had a lot of hopes for this game. I don't think I necessarily fell onto the hype train as hard as some people did, but I was definitely sitting on there comfortably. Can you recommend this at all to players? Like our listeners who are listening now who haven't played it yet, they're looking at the price tag, they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to buy it. Is it worth their money?
At full price currently, I would say no.
Yeah.
But it is possible that with a lot, because this is also something, if the developers turn this around and patch the hell out of this, fix the combat, make sure that faction actually do something, that we see some of the things that we saw in the trailer, like ships warping in to add to a fight. If the planets are diverse enough, you know what maybe would have fixed this game if life would have been rare. If discovery would mean a surprise, if you could go through 5 or 6 star systems with barren rocky planets, and then all of a sudden find one world with lush jungle and some amazing creatures, because I think that is what then it is a discovery. Yeah. Now it seems like it is a random creature generator, and I hate to invoke this, but it is so much like what happened to Spore.
Oh, I knew you were going there.
And I can honestly say I made this comparison before I read that everybody's making this comparison, but it's so, and it isn't because this game is as bad as Spore, or even that Spore was the most horrible game ever. It is about all the management of expectations and not delivering on what you promise and especially what people imagine it to be. When I first saw Spore, I thought, okay, this sounds interesting, but I wonder how it plays, because I can't see these things fit together. So if they solve that, it's going to be cool. If they don't, I have no idea what's going to be. And I had the exact same feeling with No Man's Sky. What is this going to be? And what it turned out to be was actually, well, we've covered that. It's not Star Citizen. It's not Elite Dangerous.
I think that I will just add one little caveat. If the idea of getting in a ship and exploring some procedurally generated star systems, planets, and procedurally generated life, and going around and gathering the same stuff on every planet to make stuff and just kind of exploring like that. If that sounds like fun to you, you might enjoy it. I see on the subreddit all the time people who enjoy it. They talk about all the exploration they're doing, running around. I had a heck of a time, and I shared a video on YouTube of falling to the center of a planet. That was a glitch, but I still had fun digging out this, skyscraper-sized chunk of ore deep into the earth, probably 100 feet down into the earth, so far down that I used my grenade launcher and accidentally went to the middle of the earth, and then may have continued to use my grenade launcher to bring that rend into the planet core up to the surface of the planet for animals to fall into.
Well, a game like this, allowing you to have your own fun is a good thing. Mm-hmm. That's just fine.
So I just wanted to add that caveat. I think I agree with you. I can't recommend this to a lot of people. I think there's just there's too much fun missing from the game, and too little communication going out of the developer. I haven't really heard anything. No interviews, no discussions, no comments, no posts, no nothing at all. And I know that we haven't hit on all the issues that a lot of people are having. There's way more than what we've talked about. PC launch was a mess, just technically, right? There was tons of issues on PC. So, yeah, I know that we're not hitting on everything, but
just to be sure, I mean, it's not a horrible game.
No.
It's not Star Citizen in its current state. I mean, there is more to it than Star Citizen in its current state.
We took advantage of your absence last week to talk all about Star Citizen.
You probably talked about that amazing Smoke and Mirrors demo they gave, and that 1 hour shilling of something that's probably never going to be any more than just that. Because even when I was watching this unfold and I watched the entire demo, I thought, you're making fun of me. You're just pushing my buttons, damn you. It just doesn't look like this is going to be... I don't feel like I'm being taken seriously.
You're not even a little bit. You are. You know what? It's so fun because every week when we talk about Star Citizen, or every week that we talk about Star Citizen, I get these wonderful Twitter messages from Ken from Chicago. Hi, Ken. How's it going?
Hi, Ken.
That refute pretty much every point that you have about Star Citizen, and
well, refute is a big. Let's say he's saying something,
pointing out the inaccuracies in the words that you're using and the statements that you're making.
Well, I wouldn't say inaccuracies. I would say he has an alternate point of view, which is not necessarily correct. I mean,
you're right. His is fact-based and yours is impression-based.
I've talked to somebody who was on acid, and I wouldn't say that because he said there was pink elephants in the room, there actually were. So I'm not saying that Ken from Chicago is dropping acid. I'm just asking questions.
Okay, I'm gonna move on because this is done. That's our thoughts on No Man's Sky. We're gonna move on now. We already talked about. I played WoW. I played No Man's Sky. I also played Lotro. I dinged 105. I'm now at level cap for a while. It was a lot of fun getting to level 105. I really enjoy it. So that's what we've been playing in games. We have our wonderful patrons over at patreon.com/MMO Reporter that we want to thank all of our patrons because they are absolutely fantastic and they help keep the virtual lights on. So thank you everyone for checking out patreon.com/MMO Reporter, and we would love to have you join us there. So go check it out. Check out the rewards that we have as well as the goals that we have for the network. So thanks everyone. Let's move things along to the news.
Saying you'll go deep is not the words I want to hear from you. It's not that I don't trust you, not to say, but if you only knew.
right, so let's talk about something else that's happening in space today. A Russian astronomer apparently found a signal in a star that was... I'm talking about EVE Online, obviously. This was actually a true story. There's a couple of Russian astronomers that found a signal that may or may not be a signal from an extraterrestrial civilization, which is very interesting. But yeah.
I was just going to say that's been debunked already. Turns out it was a reflection of an Earth signal that bounced off some other object. Yeah.
Did it confirm that already? That's too bad. Then I just missed a story that I had to read yesterday. Oh. Well, we still have Tabitha Star. I mean, that's still probably a Dyson sphere. So, EVE Online is adding. Let's not say is adding a free-to-play component to its game. It's been running for 30 years. It's one of the stalwarts of subscription-based MMOs, and so far, there was a 20-day trial, and that was basically it. And if you didn't want to play after that, you couldn't, because only if you paid. Now there are in kind of a move to bring in fresh meat. I dare not say cannon fodder. They are actually adding a system called clone states. Your character in EVE Online is a clone, and that clone can learn skills, and those skills are trained in real time. And when you are a paid subscriber, you have full access to all skills. It just takes a real time to learn skills. And so the older your character is, the more skills you've learned, the more flexible you are, and the more ships you can fly, and the more skills you can use. Now they're going to change that and call your paid subscription clones Omega clones. And if your subscription lapses, or if you never had a subscription and you want to play for free, all your clones are in alpha state. An alpha clone is a limited clone that can only use a subset of the skills that are available to paid subscribers. These alpha clones are balanced in such a way that they are viable to be used for certain basic tasks, so you can do the things you do in EVE Online, like shooting and mining and pirating and everything else, but not to the full extent that Omega players can do. There are some limitations that are maybe too detailed. If you have questions about it, please shoot Bill and Chris. But that's the fight.
An email. Shoot Bill and Chris an email. Not just shoot Bill and Chris, please. Thank you. You've got a question about EVE. Just go shoot Bill and Chris.
Hey, it's a harsh universe. But so that's what they're going to do. They're going to open up the game in a limited way. It seems it's more than just a perpetual demo like World of Warcraft, but it's also less than full free to play. And one of the things that I'm kind of curious about, so far they have not made any announcement about a microtransaction store or anything of the sort to monetize the alpha players. So it seems to me that this is just a way to bring in more people, to get more people to try the game in the hope they will convert their subscription to a mega state.
And I also think that this probably has is also there to bring in more people, to keep the people who are paying a subscription playing the game, because EVE is better with more people.
It only works with a lot of people.
Right. So this brings in more cannon fodder for the big battles.
Yeah, as I was trying not to say.
Yeah.
But that's indeed it. I mean, one of the great things about EVE Online is that everything that's happening in the game is because of the players. There are some missions, but they're not even worth mentioning. I mean, they're Star Citizen level missions. There's this actual game is about interaction and people backstabbing, and for people to stab other people in the backs, you need people with backs to stab. Do you have any? What do you think? What do you guys think about this?
I want to know if Bill's going to go in alpha state.
I could definitely see it. I may have said this before. I may have been saying this for years. This could be what draws me into could be what draws me into EVE. Now, it could. Why not?
All right, Bill, you've got a story as well. Let's move things along here. We've had a very long start
Chris,
to the show.
Do you want to join my corporation?
Shut up, Harry. You and your damn corporation can go straight into a black hole.
That's a throwback to Paleolithic MMO Reporter.
If you don't
anyway.
know, Harry ditched me in his corporation. He invited me and then he left me. Bill,
Left
next
it
story.
with a one-person corporation. He made you the CEO.
Well, not actually. I didn't give him any power.
Oh.
I gave him the keys to the janitor closet.
Next story.
Clean up before you leave. Rift is
And he
deciding to
did.
clean. Rift is deciding to clean up a little bit from their last expansion release by changing the model that they're actually using to release Starfall Prophecy. So Starfall Prophecy, being the new expansion for Rift, is going to be, and to me this just seems foreign, but it is what it is. It's a buy-to-play expansion. So if you want to play the new zones and get the new things from Starfall Prophecy, you gotta buy it. I know, right? It made me sneeze too. That was just.
I'm sorry.
I was shocked. So anyway, so with the previous expansion, the Nightmare something or other. Dang it!
Nightmare Tide.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Nightmare Tide. They decided they were going to release the expansion as is. Rift had cut over to free to play, so they decided, okay, we're going to make the expansion free, but we're going to make components of the expansion available via microtransaction. So this led to everybody being able to play, but free players only getting less gear because they have fewer gear slots. Free players not being able to get the top level raid gear. Free play and a few other limitations where you only are able to unlock these bonus things if you lay down some cash. So that's fine. That's a model. But people didn't like it. They felt like it was a nickel and diming type of thing. They felt that they were being just gouged for simple things and that kind of thing, and they weren't kind of looking at the bigger picture. And I think Scott Hartzman got in the article and he kind of said, well, we really wanted to try to make this a nice fit with our free-to-play. People didn't really see it, though, as getting an expansion and then paying for little pieces of it. They saw it as getting nickel and dimed for weird little things.
I have to read the exact quote here because it's absolutely, it's poorly worded and it doesn't make Scott look great. And I know Scott, I've met him a few times, but here's the exact quote. What we found is that our attempts to be very generous and more convenient were strongly not perceived that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a weird way of saying, oops, sorry. Because it doesn't sound like oops, sorry. It sounds like oops, sorry, you're stupid. We
tried to give you too much. What are you complaining about? Really, and I know that's not what Scott was going for, but man, Hartzman, that was not the best way to word that.
That's no. So anyway, so the new expansion, buy to play and that kind of thing. Now, Rift still has the same confusing shop with the same overpriced pieces to the whole thing. And this is every time I get excited about the notion of playing Rift, because it is actually an interesting game with some neat lore, some interesting class mechanics, some especially like there's a lot of very cool things about Rift until you get to the store page. And if you're somebody that played Rift at launch and then wandered away like many people, you come back to the store and you look at it and like, oh, okay, what do I have to buy to catch up? Oh, there's been 3 DLC expansions that are still priced at $30, $60, and $80. That seems like a lot. Oh, but then there's the Ultimate Edition. That's the full catch up. Why don't I just pay $150 for that? Except that doesn't give you everything either, because there's still at least one Soul DLC that is its own animal that still costs $35. Oh, that doesn't even account for the fact that you still have to buy Starfall Prophecy as its own SKU. Jesus Christ, people. What the hell? Why don't you just sell a thing? You know what? I mean, Guild Wars 2 sells a thing. If you want to play Guild Wars 2, you buy the box and you're playing. And you know what? There's going to be more expansions, and you're going to buy the box for the expansion, but you get everything else. You're just playing.
Well,
Well, but
What
we
is
don't know.
store,
We
but
don't
yeah,
know what it's.
yeah.
They're further down the road. We don't know what Guild Wars 2 is going to be like next expansion. Are
Fair
they
enough.
going to give you the Revenant as part of the next expansion if you buy that, or are you going to have to buy Heart of Thorns? Are they going to
Fine.
give you the bonuses? That's what's happened. Is that all these steps along the way? You can buy each step, or you can buy everything. And I think
Let's put it to the real test then. Let's put it right beside World of Warcraft then. What do you buy when you want to play World of Warcraft?
Shut up, Bill.
Exactly. You buy the expansion and you're done. I think there's they're giving the World of Warcraft game away with movie tickets these days. Then you buy the expansion and you're done. It's
Yeah.
easy. You know what you get every single time. If you go to the WoW store, there's a thing to buy.
Yeah.
There is something to be said to just go to a store page and know what to buy if you want to play something. It has merit, what Bill's saying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'll be a magical moment when someone within Tryon kind of looks at this and says, this is really confusing. Why don't we just have a $40 SKU that lets everybody catch up with everything, and then we can actually have people playing our game?
Ah, that's crazy talk. People
Oh,
like
you're right.
choice.
Sorry.
People like options.
So, Bill, you're just talking about the old stuff. There's still a cost. I'm showing it right now to anyone who wants to buy the game, the new expansion. That's still going to be either $39.99 for the standard edition or $59.99 for the digital deluxe.
And you know what? That would be fine. I would have no problem with that if it was like a catch-up thing. Like, okay, get back into Rift. You pay your $40, catch up, play at the same level that of at least what's available to you, what people have been playing in the past, and your taxes basically, or the downside is you didn't get to play it when everybody else was playing it previously. That's how it generally works, and that's kind of a concept that people understand. If I go in and buy Starfall Prophecy right now, there's, what is it here? How many souls are completely unavailable? Basically classes that I'd have to go back and catch up on. I could play the bare minimum, but it just feels like there's it feels intrusive because when you get back into the game, the store is very present in the game. There's so many links back to the store that say, here, buy this soul, buy this skin, buy this patch. It's very much like Lotro in the way the store kind of intrudes on the rest of the game. And I mean, I love Lotro, but I don't like the store. So there's Rift is an interesting game in so many respects. It's just monetized really badly, I think.
Yeah, but look at that freaking mount, Bill.
Oh, well.
Okay, we're done. We're done with
Yep.
this story. We're moving on.
It's
Okay,
it
my rage
loves
is out.
animations.
No, moving on.
Chris is on to mounts. We've lost all hope.
So pretty. All right. Hey, we're gonna mention.
I shudder to think what he means by riding his mount. Shall we just move to the people who make all of this wonderful stuff possible?
Yes, our wonderful friends over at Audible. Go to audiblepodcast.com/MMO Reporter to sign up for their plan. You'll get the first month free. And of course, over at Doghouse Systems, go to doghousesystems.com. Use coupon code MMO Reporter to add 120 gig SSD to your purchase to buy the best boutique PC that you can buy.
You gotta upside down. You gotta upside down.
All right, and we're back from our wonderful sponsor break, and I am joined by the ever so knowledgeable, the ever so savvy Mr. Sammy. Hello, Sammy. How are you doing?
Hello.
I always say Mr. before anyone. I don't know why. That's just what I do. You
Sure.
are a contributor to the MMO Reporter Network. You have done video for us for Devilian. You're my source for all things Path of Exiles knowledge. So I really want to thank you for coming on the show here and talking a little bit about a new game from NCSoft, which had an alpha weekend, I believe it was. Was it alpha or beta?
It's alpha.
It was, yeah, alpha, called MXM, otherwise known as Master versus Master. So I got in there and played a few hours as well, but you spent a lot more time on the weekend playing this game. Can you tell me a little bit about it? What is MXM?
Sure. So MXM is an action-based MOBA. It's the heroes are based off like some of the MXM world, in addition to some of the NCSoft games that's being developed. So you'll see heroes like Ritlock Brimstone from Guild Wars 2, or even Jin So-young from Aeon.
Yeah, and
so,
Mondo Max from WildStar as well.
Yes, him too. So it's an action MOBA in the sense that you use WASD keys to move instead of using a point and click system. You auto attack with your left mouse button, and so if you have a sword, for example, you auto attack in like a cone, and if you have a gun, then you auto attack in whatever direction your mouse is facing. You can dodge with right mouse button, and you can jump with the space bar. And of course, you have your ability. So you have Q and E, which are your basic abilities, and you have your R key, which is your ultimate.
Okay, so what makes it different from any other MOBA? Because it doesn't sound like, when you're describing it, that sounds a little bit like a MOBA, but there's some different parts to it.
So it's a lot more actiony with more dodging and jumping involved. When you select a hero, you actually select two heroes, and they all have like their own abilities that you can choose from. Out of the 4 abilities, you choose 2 of them per each hero. And when you're in combat, you actually you're able to switch between the 2. So you can have a hero out, and when you're about to die, switch over to your other hero.
And also the cooldowns are also independent, right? So you can do a little bit of stance jumping and jump between your 2 different heroes to take advantage of the different cooldowns, right?
Yes, correct. And there's a resource, there's an ultimate resource. So even though one character has used up all of their ultimate resource, however that many might take, the other hero shares the same amount. So you can't just use your ulti in one hero, switch over to the next hero, and then use their ulti, unless you have the correct amount of resource for it.
Right, and so you select your 2 heroes, and then if I remember correctly, you kind of launch into a map. You pick which map you're going to go into, and then you launch in with those 2 heroes, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Right. So what does it have any sort of MMO aspects to it?
Yeah, actually, it really reminds me of an MMO. There's a lot of MMO trappings like daily logins. There's also time-gated content, like a specific instance that you can only go in for a certain amount of time. Even the UI design really reminds me of an MMO. There's a lot of different options, and when you're at the main menu, it's not just, you select a map and you select your heroes and you just load in. The main menu is actually in the form of like this instanced area called like the bridge. And so you're able to just run around the bridge with your hero and talk to different NPCs and shopkeepers and bank storage. And also you can also level up masters by upgrading them and leveling them up.
Mm-hmm. And the way that the bridge worked kind of reminded me of like quest hubs in Diablo 3. Kind of going into a quest hub and having different things that you could do there before going into the next map.
Yes, you have all your shopkeepers, your NPCs. Yeah, it's really similar to that.
And so we talked about launching these maps. So there's PvP and PvE maps. It isn't just like a typical MOBA where you're doing PvP all the time. Can you tell me a little bit about the PvE mode?
So PvE mode are similar to like dungeons from MMOs. You involve up to 3 players and you can solo them. And of course, each player selects 2 heroes to choose for that mission. And so you're rewarded based on how fast you clear it, the combos that you do with your heroes, how much damage you've taken in that dungeon, and more. And so the incentive for doing these dungeons is that you're able to unlock specific masters by doing them, and you can also upgrade your existing master's abilities and weapons by getting components that drop from this specific dungeon.
Right, and it felt a little bit grindy in that respect, and I don't mean that with any negative connotation, but for example, one of the things that I really loved was they had this specific time-based dungeon for this weekend, which was Ascalon Catacombs from Guild Wars 2, right? Now, I don't know if you noticed
Yes.
as well as I did. It was pretty much, a miniaturized layout of Ascalon Catacombs. I remembered that, this twist and turn in the map from Guild Wars 2, and it was recreated in MXM. How many times did you run that? Like, because that was a lot of fun.
I run those actually like around 10 times. Even though I already bought Ritlock with the currency coins that they give you, I still ran it because it was just so much fun.
Yeah.
It was really reminiscent of the actual dungeon itself, even like including like pulling the chains or putting
Yeah.
rocks on a pedestal.
Yeah.
It was just I
really
was really
cool.
surprised with the amount of detail that they put in.
Yeah, and that's going to be something that's going to draw in players from those specific MMOs, and maybe not draw them in, but keep them in. But what I was talking about with the grindiness was to get the Ritlock, for example, you'd have to run it a bunch of times. You could pay with the coins, but you had to run it a bunch of times to get this currency that drops in the dungeon, and then you'd be able to buy Ritlock with that currency, right? And I'm guessing that's how the other masters are going to work as well.
Yes, and also for Ritlock, in order to upgrade his abilities and weapons, you have to run the same dungeon in order to upgrade them.
So this is definitely would you say that this is for someone who's looking for a, Diablo-like grind fest, Path of Exile type, jumping in and doing same thing again and again and again and just trying to get better and better at it?
In that aspect, yes. You also gain other components to upgrade your other masters as well. So it's still beneficial for you, even if you already own Ritlock.
Okay. So one of the things that I always get frustrated with games that pull from a pre-selected roster is, something like Marvel Heroes or stuff like that, is how do I make my gameplay experience unique and customized to what I want to do? Is there any sort of customization in this game where I'm going to have a different experience, or at least look different or play different than everybody else?
Yeah, so when you select your two masters for a mission, each master actually has 4 available skills, and you only choose 2 of them per master. And so not only can you choose those skills, you can also upgrade those skills to a certain tier as well. But keep in mind that choosing your weapon and upgrading your skills are strictly limited to PvE. If you go into PvP, for example, you actually are upgrading your skills while you're in combat and while you level up.
Okay.
So aside from that, there are skins. They're very limited right now, aside from 1 or 2 characters which have like 8 skins for some reason.
Yeah. Well, it's alpha, so stuff like that, it's in development and they're working on stuff. This is pretty early on, so.
Yes.
Now, what about the PvP mode? Did you get a chance to run any matches against other players?
Yeah, I did. They have 2 PvP modes that I played. One of them was just a 3v3 bloodbath, and it was just a small arena where whoever gets the most kills at the end is the winner.
Okay.
And then there's a 5v5 map, which is very similar to what most people would recognize as a MOBA map. So there's no items or shop in that map, and the main objective is to push the lanes and to get the enemy's core. And so you kill minions, and of course you kill the other enemy heroes, and they award you points. And after a certain amount of points, you're able to summon a Titan to push mid lane. Meanwhile, the side lanes have these 2 shrines that you can collect. And once you collect the shrines, and they actually they spawn these 2 elite monsters that actually push that lane for you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. In addition to a Titan being spawned mid lane, sometimes from those Titans, you can actually collect these Titan shards. And so once you collect them, you have to be back into your team's nexus, or you could risk dropping that Titan shard.
Oh. Okay.
And so the Titan shards are important because you're able to transform into a Titan, similar to if you ever played Heroes of the Storm, the dragon shrine from it, where a team collects the 2 altars, and then they become one of the teammates become this dragon being thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're able to collect all those shards, then one of your teammates can turn into a Titan, and then they can go off and push that lane, whatever one they choose.
Yeah. So understanding that the game is in alpha right now, which is, feature incomplete, still working out how the game is actually going to work. What are some of the issues that you had during this weekend?
So some of the issues that I ran into were that the tooltips definitely need a lot more work. there were a lot of typos in most of them, and some of them just didn't give enough information. In addition, I believe that rarity is also sorted in a different way than most games. It's currently standard, which is less, which leads into superior, which leads into rare, which leads into uncommon, and then finally legendary. And I feel like superior and uncommon should actually be switched.
It's kind of out of place there. It's almost like you should bump uncommon to below superior and then just shift superior and rare up, and then you've got standard, uncommon, superior, rare, legendary.
Yeah. So
That's
it's
silly.
just like, yeah, it's just, I think translation errors or something. In terms of gameplay, I believe that supports don't really make a major difference to the team. I think there's only like 2 healers, and aside from that, the other heroes are pretty lackluster in terms of the other support heroes are pretty lackluster in terms of both damage and how much support they can offer their team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too bad because I really like to play support. In MOBAs, I am not the best players in any way whatsoever, so I tend to pick something where I can help my team without necessarily being the top damage. I don't know the perfect rotations and stuff like that. So that's too bad. I think that having a strong support class is important for having a viable game.
Yes. I feel like supports really make or break a team, especially in other MOBA games when you can really make a difference in them.
Right. Yeah. All right. What about all the masters and stuff like that? How is that system set up?
Yeah, masters, they are sorted into a category of like being a juggernaut, which is their form of tank, a skirmisher, a support, an assassin, or an assault. And so I believe that even though there are some some masters that are labeled as a support or they're labeled as a assault, they don't really give much reason as to why they're labeled that or what their playstyle is like. So I believe each master maybe should have like a brief introduction of like how you would use them or what they specialize in.
Just a little bit more detail to help to guide players as they try to choose masters that fit their play styles.
Right. Like if I want to play like someone who, like goes in and out of combat and fights constantly, not like an assassin, but just is always in the fight, do I choose an assault or do I choose a skirmisher? Because those are pretty synonymous to me.
Right. Yeah. And overall, I mean, did you have a pretty solid weekend? Was it technically a solid gameplay experience, or were you breaking stuff all weekend, Sam? Did you break MXM?
Hopefully not too much. So the PvE was pretty good. There were really some helpful people who were really nice. The community is great. PvE I had no issues, but for PvP there was a lot of lag and lots of desync. There were times where I, would shoot off a skill and it definitely hit this character, but then they just jerk off to some other location like 10 meters away.
Oh, that's too bad.
Especially when it's my bursty characters, yes.
You get everything lined up and you shoot everything you've got and they're not there anymore.
I did the perfect combo between switching between the masters and it's just, no.
Oh, that's too bad. Okay, so I guess the really big question is, did you have fun?
Overall?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely did have fun. I feel like MXM brings a lot of new things to the table. It especially with the inclusion of PvE mode, it feels like an MMO meets a MOBA, and that's just like the two categories which I love.
And is it in a good way, or is it in a semi-truck meets a compact car sort of way?
I love that analogy. It's
Are we talking about peanut butter and chocolate or train tracks and a broken bridge?
It's more peanut butter and chocolate.
Okay.
It's a MOBA with MMO aspects and the social aspects, and yes, of course, there's some grind, but I would rather prefer that than pay to win aspects, I guess.
So what do you think if players are trying to decide whether or not they're going to get into this game? What are some closest comparisons you can make? I hear some, we talked about MOBAs, so you got a little bit of Heroes of the Storm. I think Heroes of the Storm is definitely a comparison for the Masters themselves being pulled from the NCSoft universe,
yes.
right?
Yes.
What about gameplay wise, like on the PvE side? Is that like, are you thinking some Path of Exiles types of comparisons, or Diablo type, like that sort of stuff, or what? What do you think?
For PvE, I would actually think that it's similar to like an MMO dungeon. Like you
cool.
load up a
Okay.
raid finder, or sorry, dungeon finder, and then
Yeah.
you get paired with people. Of course, there's no one's like labeled into a specific role. There's no
Yeah.
healer or dedicated
Yeah.
tank, but you sort of, with the two heroes that each person bring, maybe you can fill in the gaps without much coordination.
Did you feel like there were any teams that you were? First of all, is there LFG, like random group matchmaking? You didn't have to.
Yes.
That work. Okay, great. Now, did you find that you went into any dungeons and found that your team composition was not going to work ever? Or do you think that they've balanced it well enough that it really doesn't matter what your team composition is? You're going to get through it. It's just how well you get through it.
Yes, the latter. It's, even though, I mean, you don't really need a support for PvE. They're certainly helpful, right? Like
Yeah.
healing in between battles. But for the most part, if you choose like PvE aspects, like skills for each hero, I feel like you would be able to do well with whatever heroes that you choose. In terms of getting, so the dungeon rewards are ranked from like F all the way to S, I believe. And so how fast you clear the dungeon is also a factor in how well you do overall. So I believe if you are really good at dodging, really good at jumping, and you know the boss mechanics well, if you were to bring heroes that are able to do a lot of damage in whatever situation, then I feel like they would be able to get better rewards if you have better mastery over those heroes.
Awesome. Are you, I guess the other question is, are you itching to get back into the game, or it was okay, but, whatever?
I personally like really enjoyed the PvE, so I really love the PvE aspects of that. But for the PvP, I'm not really a fan of it, especially right now with the community meta of choosing Lua, which is this like one of the basic hero that you start out with, and then Death Knight, which is this Aatrox kind of character where he life steals a lot. So between the two, like I've loaded up into PvP matches where I've just seen like a Lua and a Death Knight always paired up, and there's like 3 of them on each team. But
Yeah.
aside from that nitpick and the lag and stuff, I'm not really a fan of the PvP.
Okay. Well, I think that you have given us a great idea of what the game is like and a great overview for our listeners. So thanks so much for coming on the show and letting us know your thoughts on MXM and a little bit about the game.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sammy, for helping us out to get to know a little bit more about MXM. Gosh, I said that wrong. Wow. MXM Master versus Master, or as Bill likes to say, Master by Master.
It
Because
should
that's-
be master by master.
Yeah. Quick mentions here. Really quickly, want to mention Lotro is teasing a new expansion. There's a interview with several Lotro developers over on Daddy's Lotro Guides, which I hadn't heard about them before. I tried to listen to the entire interview, but ended up having to read the
Fall asleep?
transcript.
Oh.
No, read the transcript because he called it Lotro.
Oh,
Ah,
I couldn't. I'm sorry. I know that makes me a horrible person, but I couldn't. And he did it twice in like
You're
a minute.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
Yeah.
correct.
So they are teasing an expansion. They're not announcing anything, but they teased it there, and that they have a 2.5-year plan, which, I mean, that if their license comes up in 2017 and they have a 2.5-year plan, they're either planning for what they hope or they know something they're not sharing.
they
Just-
actually
just
talked
to
about
reiterate,
that.
yeah.
They actually talked about it in the article too. The license renewal for Lotro, they said, is basically a formality. Like, it's a very low-key business process that's lawyers sitting down and basically hammering out renewals and carrying on. Like, they have a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to keep on doing what they're doing. So they kind of made the comment that the community seems to make a way bigger deal of this Lotro license expiring than anyone in the business actually does. So maybe this is a bit of a red herring that we've been
Maybe it's because
fishing
the
with for
last few
years now.
times. No, but the last few times that they've done their license expansions, they have not announced it until the very last minute. It's always a last minute thing that happens. If it was a regular business thing, and there was no struggles in the negotiation, wouldn't it be like, okay, a couple months before the license expires, oh yeah, by the way, we renewed our license, so you don't have to worry about that. No, it's like a week before it's supposed to expire, they announce it.
Well, there is this thing in law that you don't talk about the deal until you made the deal. It doesn't
Right.
matter how. So that's just. But
I
yeah,
totally understand that and agree with you,
Yeah.
but wouldn't they make the
But
deal
it-
2 months before, not a week?
Not necessarily. If
No.
I mean, you don't renegotiate a contract until the contract is ready to be renegotiated. It's.
Well,
I
and
mean,
that's how we get work stopped, just because they leave it too late. Anyways, I
Well,
think we're going to
anyway.
disagree there, because
I just want to focus on one little thing: the pronunciation. We all know the game is called Lord of the Rings Online. So obviously it is pronounced Lotro.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I'm going to recommend that all of our viewers, those of you who watch the show on YouTube or however you maybe you're watching live, you will want to get some Kleenex or something to wipe up the drool as we talk about the Acer Predator 21X laptop, a 21-inch curved display laptop.
Okay, hang on a sec. This is not a laptop.
No, it isn't.
If this was on your lap,
This could
you
be
would be
on
in the
my lap right
hospital
now.
for burns, and you would be in the hospital for bruising on your legs.
Not
This
to
is
mention, you will never make babies again.
This is.
I'm done.
it's
I'm good.
18 pounds heavy.
Oh man.
18 pounds. You could put 4 MacBooks together, and they'd still be lighter than this.
And the cool thing is
This thing.
You-
I just about said laptop, and I couldn't.
you look at it and the thing is so big, the amount of space between the keyboard and the hinges for the monitor, it's like a whole other keyboard's worth of space. It's got 2 1080s in it, an i7, 5 fans, 8 heat pipes. I mean, this is a beast, and I want it today.
I don't
Yeah.
even know what I do with it.
I would play
it's-
on
it's-
my frickin' reclining sectional in my living room and sit and be upstairs and playing wonderful games on a 21-inch curved monitor on my lap.
And you know what
Seriously,
I
if you do that, you'll have a penis panini in 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you for that, Harry. That's an image that's just in the catalog, and it can't go away. It's been paninied into my brain.
All right, let's get going. Last couple things here. What are we going to play next week? Harry, what are you playing?
I hope to play at least something, but at the very least, I'm going to be playing World of Warcraft, Legion, and I'm going to be extremely busy. So I wonder if I will play Master of Orion because I'm reviewing that as
Ooh,
well.
Yeah, that came out. I was
fun.
just looking at that the other day. That's pretty cool.
I have to give, I mean, usually don't do this, but I have to give a little bit of props to the PR department of that game because they sent me a package out of the blue and I opened it, and in it was the original box for the original Master of Orion with a 3.5-inch floppy disk inside,
No way.
containing the entire new version of the game. No, it's just
I was
but-
hoping that you slid the cover back and like Pez came out or something.
Unfortunately, it didn't go that far, but I do think I had a laugh. There was nothing in the box of any use or value, but it was a perfect reproduction, including the system specs for an IBM compatible PC on the back with what was it, VGA graphics. That's fun. That's fun to
That
have.
is all sorts of funny.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I love that.
Apart from that, I was going to play it anyway, and I love strategy games and I love space turn-based games. So I'm looking forward to Master of Orion.
Yeah, and when I saw it at PAX last year, I think it looked fantastic. I really was looking forward to it. So you have to let me know what it's like. Bill, what are you going to be playing? Oh, you know what? Let me go. You can go last. You're special. You can go last.
Thanks.
I'm going to play WoW. That's going to be my main game. A little bit of Lotro, and then I'm back to work. So I will be playing the Game of Life.
Yeah,
Boom.
Game of Life is fun.
What about you,
Summer's
Bill?
over.
Well, I've got a long weekend, so I'm excited about that. I'm going to do some WoW leveling just to see how far I can get there. I'm going to kick off Overwatch. I'm going to see if I can get all my placement matches and see how good/bad I am in Season 2. I'm going to take a run at Elite Dangerous as well. I actually, while we've been recording, I've dusted my flight stick and it's ready to go, and I'm going to do some exploring. And finally, if all those games are down due to DDoS or something like that, I'm going to take a run at Rift, and I'm going to try it, and I'm going to try to avoid the store because it's a game I like until I figure out, okay, well, how do I pay for it? What am I going to buy? I don't want any of these things. These are all stupid. I'm going to go play WoW.
I feel incredibly stupid for not asking this before, but if I already own Rift in its current state, I don't have to buy anything to have full access to the entire game?
You don't, content-wise, correct, but souls, like the different classes, subclasses for your class, and some
Expansion
gear
classes.
slots. Yes, right.
Yeah.
So you have access to everything you had before. You don't need a sub. And you have access to all of the new content and the ability to level through all that content, but you're missing an earring slot. You can't get the raid gear in Nightmare Tide. You're missing a bunch of souls.
Never mind then. I'm not going to play that.
Okay.
Exactly. And I also have to head down to the trademark office because I am going to trademark Pinini.
All right, on that.
I think you'll have a hard time selling that. I would...
Just get to the contact info, Bill. Just get us out of this.
What are we going to get for lunch
Get
today?
us out of this.
It's all about who you market to, Harry.
Don't talk with your mouth full.
I'm going to market this to women.
Okay.
If there's any group of people who are not interested in this, it's going to be...
Anyway, okay. Send us an email if you're interested in my Pinini. You can head over to MMOreporter.com. You can email us about it over at MMO.reporter@gmail.com. You can head over to Facebook.com/MMOreporter. You can tweet at any of the MMO reporters, either at MMO_reporter for Chris, at Harry Hall for Harry Hall, or at MMO Bill for yours truly. You can give us a call at 616-666-6778 to leave us a voicemail. Visit us on YouTube at youtube.com/MMOreporter network. Support us over on patreon.com/MMOreporter or on MMOreporter.com/support.
Why is
Awesome.
there a code of letters under the contact information?
Nothing you need to know.
It's Sombra.
That's right. Okay, Bill, thanks. It was a lot of fun recording this week. Much more pleasurable than last week.
Yes, you've redeemed yourself slightly.
Thank you. Thank you. Harry, thank you for getting your butt out of bed and coming and recording with us. It feels like this is becoming a bi-weekly occurrence.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
And thanks, most importantly, to all of you, our wonderful listeners. You are fantastic people. We absolutely love what we do, and that's because you are so awesome. So thanks for listening to the show. However you may consume it, whether it's downloading the MP3, watching it on the website, on YouTube, or wherever else you may go. So thanks, everyone, for coming out and listening. We hope that you come back next week, but most importantly, we hope to see you in game. Don't
forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish.